Good evening, children. So today, let's move to the chapter of print, media and social awakening, or we are going to do the chapter of print, culture and novels of the world. The name of the chapter, Print Culture and the Novels of the World. So let's talk firstly about Japan. Now, as you know, children, the earliest kind of print technology was developed in China, Japan and Korea. This was a system of hand printing from AD 594 onwards. 594 के बाद से तब जो छपाई चलती थी वो हैंड प्रिंटिंग थी. It was the hand printing. Books in China were printed by rubbing paper against the ink surface of wood blocks. The traditional Chinese accordion book was folded and stitched at the side because both sides of the thin porous sheet could not be printed. Calligraphy was popular. At the time, calligraphy was popular. Shanghai became the hub of the new print culture. The place Shanghai, it became the hub of the new print culture, catering to the Western style school. I have used one word, calligraphy. Now, what's the meaning of this? Calligraphy is the art of beautiful and stylized writing. Remember the term? Calligraphy is the art of beautiful and stylized writing. Now let's move to Japan. Print in Japan. Buddhist missionaries from China introduced hand printing technology into Japan around 768 to 770. The oldest Japanese book is the Buddhist Diamond Sutra. Remember the name? The oldest one is Buddhist Diamond Sutra. Now let's move to Europe. Now if I talk about print in Europe, you will find Chinese paper reached Europe via Silk Route. In 1295, जो मार्को पोलो थे, मार्को पोलो returned to Italy after many years of exploration in China. Marco Polo brought the knowledge of technology of wood printing back with him. और मार्को पोलो अपने साथ वापस लेके आए printing, wood printing. The Italians began producing books with wood blocks. Soon the technology spread to other parts of Europe. Luxury editions were written on very expensive vellum, a parchment made from the skin of animals. जो luxury editions थे, luxury मतलब the editions which were very costly or written by the king, for the king or for any aristocrat. It was written on a very expensive vellum. Vellum का मतलब होता है जो किसी जानवर की स्किन होती है उसके ऊपर. Scribes or skilled handwritten were employed by booksellers. With the growing demand for books, wood block printing gradually became more and more popular. और जैसे जैसे डिमांड बढ़ रही थी किताबों की, अब उसमें क्या हो रहा था, जो वुड ब्लॉक प्रिंटिंग थी वो धीरे धीरे करके बहुत ज़्यादा पॉपुलर होने लगी. Now let's move to the other topic. My other topic is Gutenberg and the printing press. Johann Gutenberg developed the first known printing press in the 1430s. Remember the date? In the year 1430s, the first printing press was developed. The olive press provided the model for the printing press, and molds were used for casting metal types for letters of the alphabet. The first book printed was Bible. और जो सबसे पहली किताब छापी गई थी, the name of that book was Holy Bible. The printed book at first resembled the written manuscript in appearance and layout. In the 100 years between 1450 and 1550, printing presses were set up in most countries of Europe. और करीब 100 साल के ड्यूरेशन में between 1450 to 1550 more than 100 printing press were set up. In the period of 100 years, numerous printing presses were set up in the European parts. This was a shift from hand printing to mechanical printing led to print revolution. शुरुआत में जब प्रिंटिंग स्टार्ट हुई थी तो इट वाज द हैंड प्रिंटिंग और धीरे धीरे वो मैकेनिकल प्रिंटिंग में कन्वर्ट हो गई एंड दिस ब्रॉट द रेवोल्यूशन. देखो अभी प्रिंट रेवोल्यूशन क्या था. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट दिस प्रिंट रेवोल्यूशन एंड इट्स इम्पैक्ट. विद द प्रिंटिंग प्रेस अ न्यू पब्लिक रीडिंग इमर्ज्ड. प्रिंटिंग रिड्यूस्ड द कॉस्ट ऑफ बुक्स. देखो जितनी ज़्यादा किताबें छपेंगी, मतलब एट वन टाइम आप जितनी ज़्यादा किताबें छाप रहे हैं उसका जो रेट होगा वो उतना कम होता जाएगा. प्रिंटिंग रिड्यूस द कॉस्ट ऑफ बुक्स. बुक्स रीच्ड आउट टू एन एवर ग्रोइंग रीडरशिप. देखो धीरे धीरे पढ़ने वाले बढ़ रहे थे और जैसे जैसे पढ़ने वाले बढ़ रहे थे किताबों के दाम घटते जा रहे थे और जो किताबें थी वो हर कोने तक, पूरे विश्व के कोने तक फैल पा रही थी. Access to books created a new culture of reading, and this access of books, it developed or it created a new hobby or a new culture of reading. Earlier, reading was restricted to elites. देखो पहले क्या होता था, जो रीडिंग होती थी बुक्स बहुत महंगी होती थी और जो बहुत फाइनेंशियली स्ट्रांग होते थे, पैसे से मजबूत लोग ही इन किताबों को परचेज कर पाते थे. सो दिस रीडिंग वॉज रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू एलाइट्स ओनली. Common people would hear sacred texts read out. अच्छा, जो कॉमन पीपल होते थे, जो सैक्रेड होते थे, धार्मिक चीज़ें होती थी, उसको केवल सुन पाते थे. नॉलेज वॉज ट्रांसफर्ड ओरली एंड ड्यूरिंग दैट पीरियड नॉलेज वॉज ओरली ट्रांसफर्ड. बुक्स कुड बी रेड ओनली बाय लिटरेट. ध्यान रखना इस बात को कि द बुक्स कुड बी रेड ओनली बाय द लिटरेट पीपल. सो प्रिंटर्स बिगैन पब्लिशिंग पॉपुलर बैलेड्स and folk tales profusely illustrated with pictures. और जो भी लोग चीज़ें प्रिंट कर रहे थे, folk tales वगैरह, उसमें पिक्चर्स भी लोग यूटिलाइज कर रहे थे. Oral culture thus entered print and printed material was orally transmitted. अब जो printed material था वो अब orally transmit होने लगा. The hearing public and reading public became intermingled. ये दोनों चीज़ें आपस में मिल गई थी. The 2 points were the hearing public and the reading public. They both intermingled. Now, print created the possibility of wide circulation of ideas. देखो जैसे आज के टाइम में when we read the newspapers, we come to know about several things which are occurring in the world. We, by the help of the newspapers or with the help of the media, there is an upgradation in our knowledge. So during that time, print created the possibility of wide circulation of ideas. Through printed message, people could be persuaded to think differently. Not everyone welcomed the printed book. It was feared that if there was no control over what was printed, rebellious and irreligious thoughts might spread. उस समय खतरा एक और था कि अगर प्रिंट कल्चर पे हमने रोक नहीं लगाई, जो मन करे वो छपता जा रहा था, तो क्या होगा, धार्मिक चीज़ों पे इररिलीजियस थॉट और रिबेलियस थॉट्स भी अखबारों में छापे जा सकते हैं जिससे जनता बदल सकती है. दिस एंजाइटी वॉज द बेसिस ऑफ वाइड स्प्रेड क्रिटिसिज्म ऑफ न्यू प्रिंटेड लिटरेचर. सो एक ये कारण था, दैट्स वाई दिस प्रिंट कल्चर एट दैट टाइम वॉज वेरी मच क्रिटिसाइज्ड. 95 theses written by Martin Luther led to a division within the church. अब जो मार्टिन लूथर ने जो किताब लिखी थी जर्मनी में, that was this, जो उनकी 95 theses थी, this created a wedge in the church and to the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. और मार्टिन लूथर ने स्टार्ट कर दिया था प्रोटेस्टेंट. प्रोटेस्ट मीन्स टू go against someone, and that was the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. After that, the Roman Church, अब जो रोम के चर्च वाले थे, troubled by effects of popular reading and questionings of faith, imposed severe controls over the publishers and began to maintain an index of prohibited books from 1558. अब जो चर्च वाले थे, जो रोमन चर्च वाले थे, उनको बहुत ज़्यादा दिक्कतें होने लगी. Why? Because now the people started queries. The people started putting up the questions on these churches. And now in the year, during the period of 1558, कई सारी किताबों पे रोक लगा दी गई थी. ऐसी किताबों के ऊपर which was putting a question mark on the working of the Roman Church. Literacy and schools spread in European countries led to virtual reading mania. In England, penny chapbooks were carried by petty peddlers and sold for a penny, so that even the poor could buy them. In France, Bilothque Blue were low-priced books printed on poor quality paper and bound in blue cheap covers. Now, see, जो उस समय किताबें छपती थी या आज भी जो किताबें छपती हैं वो दो लेवल्स में आती हैं, जिसमें हम लोग सफ़ेद पन्ने देखते हैं जो आपकी टेक्स्ट बुक्स होती हैं जो प्राइवेट पब्लिशर्स की हैं. यू वुड बी सीइंग वाइट पेजेस इन दैट, वो बिलोंग करती हैं प्राइवेट सेक्टर की. एंड यू वुड हैव सीन बुक्स, उनका जो कवर होता है, जो कलर होता है, दैट इज़ बिट येलोइश. तो जो येलोइश होती हैं वो चीपर बुक्स होती हैं, उसका रेट काफ़ी कम होता है. सो दैट इज़ द डिफरेंस. अच्छा, अब जो न्यूज़पेपर्स यू वुड हैव सीन टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, HT या हिंदू या हेराल्ड, कोई भी न्यूज़पेपर अगर आप लोग पढ़ते हैं तो ये जो न्यूज़पेपर्स होते हैं उनकी क्वालिटी देखना. आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग नाउ डेज, कोविड का सीजन चल रहा है तो इसमें क्वालिटी बहुत अच्छी नहीं आ रही है. तो जो न्यूज़पेपर्स आते हैं, जो टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, उसके रेट्स ज़्यादा रहते हैं, उसका रेट ज़्यादा होता है. एंड द अदर प्रॉब्लम इज़ कि उसकी जो पेपर क्वालिटी होती है दैट इज़ वेरी फाइन. और वहीं आप ₹1 वाला भी अखबार ले लीजिए हिंदी का, तो उसका जो कागज़ का स्टैंडर्ड होता है, जो पेपर का स्टैंडर्ड होता है, वो बहुत बेकार होता है. एंड दिस जो बेकार स्टैंडर्ड वाले पेपर हैं वो इजीली परचेजेबल होते हैं. ₹1 ₹2 का अखबार आता है, जो अखबार जो न्यूज़ उसमें आपको मिल रही है वही आपको उसमें भी मिल रही है. तो जो सस्ते वाले होते हैं उसे हर आदमी खरीद सकता है. रेलवे स्टेशन, बस स्टैंड, कहीं पर भी वो अखबार आसानी से बिक जाते हैं और ख़रीदने वाले को कोई दिक्कत भी नहीं होती है. द सेम थिंग वॉज देयर in those areas, in the European nations. Now, let's talk about the other point, public culture and the French Revolution. My next point is public culture and the French Revolution. Now, many historians have argued, several historians have argued that the print culture created the conditions within which French Revolution occurred. अब कई लोगों का उस समय यह भी मानना था कि ये जो प्रिंट कल्चर आया है, ड्यू टू दिस ओनली द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन टुक प्लेस. अगर ये प्रिंट कल्चर ना आया होता तो फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन ना होता. फर्स्ट, प्रिंट पॉपुलराइज द आइडियाज ऑफ द इनलाइटमेंट थिंकर्स. देखो सबसे अच्छी क्या चीज़ थी, द फर्स्ट बेनिफिट वॉज जो ये प्रिंट कल्चर था, इट गेव पब्लिसिटी और इट गेव मोर एंड मोर पॉपुलैरिटी टू द एनलाइटमेंट थिंकर्स, जो अच्छे सोचने वाले थे, जिनके आइडियोलॉजीज, दोज वर हैविंग वेरी पॉजिटिव आइडियोलॉजीज. दैट आइडियाज वेंट टू द मासेस. दे आर्ग्यूड फॉर द रूल ऑफ रीजन rather than customs. My opinion is also similar. I argue for the rule of reason rather than customs, and demanded everything be just through the application of reason. और उस समय अच्छे लेखकों की डिमांड क्या थी कि हर चीज़ को हम जज करें रीज़न के थ्रू और रैशनैलिटी के थ्रू, कस्टम्स के थ्रू नहीं. सेकंड, print created a new culture of dialogue and debate. This print culture brought the system of, or the culture of, dialogue and debates. All value norms and institutions were re-evaluated, which led to new ideas of social revolution. Third, by 1780s, there was an outpouring of literature that mocked the royalty and criticized their morality. This led to growth of hostile sentiments against the monarchy. अब हम लोग बात करते हैं थोड़ी सी इंडिया एंड द वर्ल्ड ऑफ प्रिंट. लेट्स मूव टू द पॉइंट ऑफ इंडिया. अभी तक हम लोग यूरोपियन नेशंस की बात कर रहे थे. नाउ आई एम मूविंग टू द पॉइंट ऑफ इंडिया एंड द वर्ल्ड ऑफ प्रिंट. Manuscripts. The first heading is manuscripts before the age of print. Manuscripts before the age of print. Now, what is the meaning of this? India had a very rich tradition of handwritten manuscripts copied on palm leaves or on handmade paper. Manuscripts continued to be produced till well after the introduction of print. Down to the late 19th century, manuscripts were highly expensive and fragile. They could not be read easily as script was written in different styles. अब जो उस समय स्क्रिप्ट लिखने का तरीका था वो बहुत डिफरेंट था और उस समय ये बहुत महंगी थी. इंडिया में हैंड रिटन कंटेंट जो था वो बहुत ज़्यादा महंगा था. In the late 19th century. Now let's move to printing in India. अब हम लोग थोड़ी सी बात करते हैं printing in India. Now the first point is the printing press first came to Goa. सबसे पहले printing press जो हमारे इंडिया में आई वो गोवा में आई थी. And during that time it was being brought by Portuguese missionaries in the mid 16th century. Catholic priests printed the first Tamil book in 1579 at Cochin, and in 1713 the first Malayalam book was printed. From 1718 से James Augustus Hickey began to edit the Bengal Gazette, a weekly magazine that described itself as a commercial paper upon to all, but influenced by none. By the close of the 18th century, जब 18वीं शताब्दी का अंत हुआ, India began to publish Indian newspapers. Bengal Gazette, brought out by Gangadhar Bhattacharya, was the first Indian newspaper. Mark कर लेना name. Bengal Gazette, brought out by Gangadhar Bhattacharya, was the first Indian newspaper. पहला भारत का अखबार था Bengal Gazette. Now the next point is religious reforms and public debates. Now, with the help of these newspapers, Ram Mohan Roy published the Sambad Kaum Buddhi in 1821. The name is Sambad Kaum Buddhi in 1821, and the Hindus Orthodoxy commissioned the Samachar Chandrika to oppose his opinion. From 1822, two Persian newspapers were published, Jami-e-Jahan Nama and the Samshul Akbar. In the same year, उसी साल एक गुजराती न्यूज़पेपर भी स्टार्ट हुआ. The Bombay Samachar made its appearance. उसी साल the Bombay समाचार की भी एंट्री हुई. The first printed edition of the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas came out from Calcutta. जो सबसे पहली किताब एडिशन हुई थी वो थी रामचरितमानस. The first printed edition of Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas came out from Calcutta in 1810. From the 1880s, the Naval Kishore Press at Lucknow. Remember the name, children? Lucknow में Naval Kishore Road भी है. You people would be knowing. The Naval Kishore Press at Lucknow and the Shri Venkateshwar Press in Bombay published numerous religious texts in vernaculars. Now here the word vernaculars means in different languages. In different languages the books were being published. After this, Now let's give a big importance to women and print. Women's reading increased enormously in the middle class homes. जो मध्य वर्गीय परिवार थे उसमें जो महिलाएं थी उनका भी पढ़ने की किताबों पे थोड़ी सा रुझान गया. रास सुंदरी देवी wrote her autobiography Amar Jeevan, which was published in 1876. It was the first full-length autobiography published in the Bengali language. ये पहली ऑटोबायोग्राफी थी जो पूरी तरीके से बंगाली भाषा में थी. From the 1860s, a few Bengali women like Kailash Bhashini Devi wrote books highlighting the experiences of women, and in that several books were written which were highlighting the experiences of the women. In the 1880s, Tarabai Shinde and Pandit Ramabai wrote about miserable lives. इन लोगों ने जो सच्चाई थी, जो अपर कास्ट हिंदू वुमेन की जो कंडीशंस थी, that have been mentioned. खास करके जो विडोज की जो हालत थी, that points have been mentioned. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ अगर हम लोग दूसरी भाषाओं में देखें तो while Urdu, Tamil, Bengali and Marathi print culture had developed early, Hindi printing began seriously only from the 1870s. और जो हिंदी प्रिंटिंग जो सीरियस हुई वो थी 1870s में. In Punjab, folk literature was widely printed from the early 20th century. पंजाब में 20th century से शुरुआत हुई. Ram Chadha published the first selling Istri Dharm Vichar to teach women how to be obedient wives. नाम याद रखना इसका. Ram Chadha published the first selling Istri Dharm Vichar to teach women how to be obedient wives. Now my next point is print and censorship. Now you all people would be knowing the meaning of the word censorship. It means to block. By 1820s, the Calcutta Supreme Court passed certain regulations to control press freedom, and the company began encouraging publication of newspapers that would celebrate British rule. In 1835, faced with urgent petitions by editors of English, Governor General Bentinck, Lord William Bentinck, agreed to revise press laws. Thomas Macaulay, a liberal colonial officer, formulated new rules that restored the earlier freedoms. In 1878, the Vernacular Press Act, remember this date? 1878. The Vernacular Press Act was passed, modelled on the Irish press laws. It provided the government with extensive rights to censor reports and editorials in the vernacular press. Remember, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, in short we call that BGT. Bal Gangadhar Tilak wrote about Punjab revolutionaries in his Kesari. इनके दो थे, एक था केसरी, एक था महरट्ठा, और कुछ किताबों में आपको ये मिलेगा मराठा के नाम से, केसरी एंड मराठा. This led to his imprisonment in 1908, जिसके कारण बाल गंगाधर तिलक को जेल भी जाना पड़ा था. Now, the next point is rise of novel. The novel first took root form in England and France. Henry Fielding, a novelist of the early 18th century, claimed he was the founder of a new province of writing where he could make his own laws. The epistolatory novel used the personal and private form of letters to tell his history. The next point is the new woman. The most exciting element, the most exciting element of the novel was the involvement of the woman. The novels of Jane Austen give us a glimpse of the world of women in gentle rural society in early 19th century Britain. देखो अगर हम लोग ऐसे ही बात करें तो उस समय भारत में भी इन so many novels were there in India also. The modern novel form developed in India in the 19th century. Some of the earliest Indian novels were written in Bengali. इसकी शुरुआत बंगाली भाषा से हुई थी, बंगाली और मराठी से. The earliest novel in Marathi was Baba Padmanji's Yamusana Paryatan. Indu Lekha, published in 1889, was the most modern novel written in Malayalam by O. Chandu Menon. Many novels were translated from other language और कई ऐसे novels थे जिनको दूसरी भाषा से convert किया गया था. The first proper modern novel was written by Srinivas Das of Delhi. It was with the writing of Prem Chand that the Hindu novel achieved excellency. और जब से इनके प्रेमचंद का टाइम आया उस समय से जो नॉवेल्स थे इंडिया के वो फेमस होने लगे. Now children, now it's high time we should be going for certain questions. It's the time for certain questions. Till the time, answer me one question. Who wrote 95 theses? Firstly, answer this question. Who wrote 95 theses? Firstly, answer the question which I have sent you. Who wrote it? 95 theses. Okay, children. Now, I have just asked you one question, that who wrote 95 theses? Now, anybody would like to give the answer? Okay. Now, no one? Yes, Kushagra? Good. Your answer is correct. The answer is Martin Luther. Now, let's move to the question round. My first question is, which is on your screen. Choose the correct response from the given options. In 1836, the first novel in a magazine to be serialized was Sketches by Boz by Charles Dickens, Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens, Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Now what's the answer? Yes, children, the answer of this question. Snigdha, Siddhant, Priya, Dikshant, Sujal, Kshitij, Slok, Aryan, Pushpendra, Aniruddh, Tanisha. Give the answer. Okay, children. The correct answer is okay. Okay, children. The correct answer for this question is choose the correct response from the given options. In 1836, the first novel in a magazine to be serialized was option A, Sketches by Boz by Charles Dickens, option 2, Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens, third option, Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, and option 4, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Now, first thing, maximum people will go for option 4, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, because this is the famous book and all people know the name of this. But the correct answer for this question is option 3, Pickwick Papers. Charles Dickens' Pickwick Paper was the first novel to be serialized in a magazine. The correct answer is okay. Now the next question. Question number 2. Choose the correct response from the given option. Printing press first came to Goa with Portuguese missionaries. Which of the following statements are true related to the first book printed in India? In 1674, 50 books were printed in Kannada and Konkani languages. Catholic priest printed first Tamil book in 1579 at Goa. Option 3, Catholic priests printed the first Malayalam book in 1779. Option 4, English language printing press started growing rapidly in late 16th century. Now what's the answer for this question? Now you can send your answers fast. Okay, Priya, Anirudh, they have sent their answers. Now, children, okay, the correct answer is option 1. The correct option is option 1. It is. Now, I am telling you the reason also for my answer. The first books were printed in Konkani language. By 1674, about 50 books had been printed in Konkani and Kannada languages. Now, Catholic priests printed the first Tamil book in 1579 at Cochin. Catholic priests printed the first Malayalam book in 1713. The English language press did not grow in India till quite late, even though the East India began to import presses from the late 17th century. So the correct answer for this question is option 1. The first books were printed in Konkani language. By 1674, about 50 books had been printed in Konkani and Kannada languages. Now let's move to the third question. The third question is, okay, third question, choose the correct response from the given options. Grimm brothers saw French domination as a great threat to their culture. Thus, they started collecting folk tales. Which of the following statements about Grimm brothers is incorrect? Remember the point? Which of the following statements about Grimm brothers is incorrect? You have to mark the incorrect point. First option, they opened a publishing house for children in France. The second option, they gathered and compiled folk tales from peasants. Option 3, anything that was unsuitable for children or would appear vulgar to the elites was edited before publishing. Option 4, they published their collection in 1812. Now children, send your answer. Okay. Kushagra A. Anirudh Dwivedi has sent me the option B. Vanshika Kushwaha C. Okay, children. The correct answer for this question is option 1. Grimm brothers opened a publishing house for children in France. So the correct answer for this one is 1. Now, come to this question. Now it would be visible to you. Now this question is visible to all. Okay, now let's move to the other question. Now I hope so that the question would be clear to you. My question is, which of the following statements are correct about the steps the ulama took to counter the fear of conversion of Muslims and change in Muslim personal laws as a result of the fall of the Muslim dynasty? Option 1. They published thousands of fatwas telling Muslim readers how to conduct themselves in their everyday lives and explaining the meaning of Islamic doctrines. Option 2. They published religious newspapers Jame Jahan Nama and Shamshul Akbar under the aegis of Deoband Seminary. Option 3. They published Persian and Urdu translations of holy scriptures and texts. Choose the correct option. Option 1 is 1 and 2. Option 2 is 2nd and 3rd. Option 3 is 1st and 3rd. Option 4 is 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Yes, children, now send me the answer for this question. Question number 7, which is visible on your screen. Priya, Anirudh, Vanshika, send me the answer fast. Where are Snigdha and Siddhant? Aryan Shaw, Satendra Avasthi, send the answer fast. Sujan Tiwari, Okay, the correct answer is option 4. See, Ulma used cheap lithographic presses to publish Persian and Urdu translations of holy scriptures and printed religious newspapers and tracts to counter their fears for the Muslim religion and Muslim personal law. The Deoband Seminary published thousands of fatwas telling Muslim readers how to conduct themselves in their everyday lives and explaining the meaning of Islamic doctrines. Now let's move to the eighth question. The eighth question is very clear. Which of the following statements is incorrect about print culture coming to Europe? Option 1. In 1295, Marco Polo brought woodblock printing technology to Italy. Option 2. Luxury editions of books were made by using woodblock printing on expensive vellum. Option 3. Booksellers began to employ skilled scribes to meet the increasing demand. Option 4. Book fairs were held all over Europe. Out of these 4 options, you have to select any one. Children, be fast in selecting the option, as this is the last question for today. And today also, just after the class, I'll be sending you nearly 25 to 30 questions along with answers so that you can evaluate yourself. Okay, children, the answer for question number 8. Question number The answer for question number 8 is option 2. Luxury editions were still handwritten. Okay, now you can see the ninth question also. Just go to the ninth question. Which of the following books were folded and stitched at the side? Send the answer fast. Okay, the correct answer for question number 9 is option 1. Accordion book. So that's all for today. That's all for today, children. I'll be sending you the multiple choice questions along with short brief notes so that you can go through it